Around the world, the young parents have the sleep deprivation when they have young children. What's your advice to them?
Stop having kids. No, I'm just playing.
Can I sleep with hunger? Topic that keeps running around in the social media as well as others. So, what are your thoughts on this?
First off, you don't eat to sleep. All this tracking of our sleep now is causing us a sense of anxiety to sleep. I call it sleep anxiety. You're thinking, oh, I'm not doing well because I'm measuring my sleep tracker. And also,
Quality of sleep has started to affect when we saw a technology emerging in terms of this entertainment on demand.
I would agree 100%.
What is the last meal that you should have before you hit the bed? Do you think it's a good habit to eat after the sunset?
And because of the lack of discipline, the lack of being able to just resist the temptation of getting back on that phone, our life will be determined, as well as the health that we have, based on the ability for us to focus on these 7 to maybe 9 hours of us getting this time to repair and rejuvenate and restore the mind and body. We take it for granted.
You know, I was actually talking to my grandma and asking her who is the most happiest and the luckiest person in the world. And the answer she gave me was very surprising. She said, child, the person who can digest the food as soon as they eat and the person who falls asleep as soon as they hit the bed is the most happiest and the luckiest person in the world. That's the kind of a relationship our gut health and sleep has. And many of us are suffering with sleep related disorders and they're unable to find a solution to it. This is the topic of our discussion today, which is sleep and its disorders. Welcome to Medicas video podcast. My name is Varun. I hope you're all doing well. In order to discuss this subject, we have Gregory Arneaud, who is joining us from Trinidad and Tobago. Let's welcome him on board. Gregory, welcome on board to Medicas. Thank you so much for accepting our offer, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a quick background about Gregory, which I have actually researched. Of course, I let him speak as well. So Gregory is a founder and the chairman of ISD Health Solutions. He's got 26 years of experience in treating patients with sleep and its disorders. He is an author of various books. One of them, namely, is The Wake Up Call: How You Sleep is How You Live. He's a sleep ambassador and World Sleep Day delegate for Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica. Gregory, with this kind of an experience and the vast exposure you have around this simple and the most natural medical subject that any humankind can have is sleep. So we are so happy to have you on board, sir.
I'm excited to be here as well, Varun. And most people don't take sleep seriously. So it's always great to see when it becomes a topic of conversation, because it's a vital part of our lives. Most often that goes overlooked.
Absolutely, Greg. We never thought there would be a day that we have to speak about sleep, because I think because of a lot of issues that every individual is facing, including the lifestyle related issues, sleep has now become a subject, or rather a condition to treat. And most of them around the world are having sleep related issues. So let's quickly jump to the topic, Greg. And I would like to understand, because I probably am one of them who are having an issue with respect to the sleep, but I tend to keep myself rested at least for a substantial amount of time, but I don't know if that is good enough or not. So why sleep is essential to our health, Greg?
Well, sleep was obviously designed by purpose, not just biologically that we need sleep, but this is the time that the body restores itself, it heals itself, and also resets the mind. And it's very essential. And most people don't understand that sleep is not just looking at the amount of time that you sleep, like what you mentioned, that you felt as if you're getting enough sleep, but more importantly, the quality of what's going on during those hours of sleep are even more important.
Can we actually connect sleep with a machine that is running on its own, where we tend to say, like, if there is a machine, it requires rest for some time or some days in order for it to again cool down and come back with full functioning. So is our body also designed in the same way, Greg? Can we say that?
I mean, if you want to take a look at a cell phone, because everyone has one, you realize that when your cell phone is charged, you can do just about everything, right? You can scroll through all your apps, you can do your videos, your recording, have the conversations. But as the power starts to dissipate throughout the day and you start seeing how low it gets, you wouldn't even think for a moment to not charge it the night before to be prepared for the next day or even charge throughout the day. That charging process is the same rebooting process that the body and mind requires in order to function the way it's designed. We would all attest that we are better when we're better rested than when we're not, right? We've never had a really amazing day not feeling the
That's right.
energy and the endurance and the stamina that's required to exert effort. So sleep
That's
plays
right.
a vital part in these areas, and I'm glad that we're having this discussion because a lot of diseases that people face on a day-to-day basis is now look back towards what their sleep patterns were and how well they slept over the years.
Greg, there is this misconception. See, when a new baby child is born, our parents will actually put us to sleep for as many long hours as possible. As we grow a little older, I mean, it's the misconception that we have in the society, right? So they tell us, hey, you're sleeping for too long. You have your homeworks to complete, you have your school to attend, etc. And as we grow a little more elderly, even though we want to sleep, we don't get to sleep. Now, the question is, how much sleep is necessary for different age groups? Correct.
Well, we've all been there. If you had a newborn, it's really difficult to sleep in. As much sleep that you can put the baby to helps you to get some things done that you had to put aside, obviously, because of the priority being the newborn. But newborns typically should be getting anywhere from about 14 to 17 hours of rest in a day. Children, roughly between, I would say, 6 and 12 years old, roughly about 9 to 12 hours. And it's very important that, that children are getting the proper sleep because of the ability for their development mentally, physically, and obviously emotionally. This is something that children are starting to develop problems in trying to maintain a healthy sleep schedule and consistency because of these phones, right? These things that they're attached to and the access to so many distractions. And as teens, about 8 to 10 hours typically is what we would need because there's actually something going on during that process of those hours, and we'll tap into that. And adults, if we can get 7 to 9 hours, that would be ideal considering some of the stress that we deal with and responsibilities and all of the goals we try to achieve. And as we get a little older, we tend to realize that we need a little less sleep, between 7 and 8 hours, but we have more fragmented sleep as we're older. That the quality of the sleep is not as good in the younger years, and unfortunately, if you're not getting the proper quality and or quantity of sleep over the years, it will show up in the shadows of your later part of life.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think most of us can relate to this too. So I think this is going to be a lot of help to a lot of people to understand the amount of sleep they need to have at various ages. So, Greg, you mentioned about one particular topic, which is about devices, the technology, and mobile navigation, and everything that is related to the sleep that it probably is affecting the sleep. So, I want to ask you, because see, back then, I'm talking about some 10, 15 years ago, there is nothing called as entertainment on demand. So now we have
Right.
something called as entertainment on demand, where we we demand an entertainment and that's available with us within a split second. Previously, when entertainment was available to at a stipulated time, and after that it shuts down, and you're forced to actually rest your body or rest your mind. Now that's not the
Yes.
case. So, do you think the quality of sleep has started to affect when we saw a technology emerging in terms of this entertainment on demand?
I would agree 100% because I'm not sure how old you are, Varun, but there was a time there was nothing on television after 11, 12 o'clock. There was very few things that can keep you entertained. And as you said, this instant ability to be satisfied, whether it be stimulating the mind in one way or the other, visually, audioly, these things weren't available in those days. And I think on top of the growth of technology and how it's become such an embraced part of our lives, even from childhood phase, is this structure of our sleep schedules being impacted during COVID. When we lost a lot of the structure of our daily activities and how we worked, when we worked, this kind of brought those pillars down of those kind of, I would say, unsaid times that we knew we should be in bed. You knew you should be in bed at a certain time, especially as a child. As you're getting older, and I'm getting older, I'm appreciating sleep differently in my older years than I did obviously in my younger years, right? We abused sleep because we could. We could get minimal sleep and still have enough energy to keep going. But as we've learned over time, we're not at our physical best, mental best, and emotionally, we just can't seem to cope without getting a good night's rest.
Gregory, I think unfortunately or fortunately, we have been dependent on a lot of technology, be it related to anything for that matter. Now, why am I saying this is because we have reached a stage where we started to track the number of hours we are sleeping. There are a lot of wearable devices that are coming up, which is actually telling us the amount of sleep that we had. And we are so dependent on these wearables that we are looking at the device and assuming that, we need to sleep more and we are unable to sleep. Back then, as soon as we hit the bed, we used to sleep. And when we wake up, we are ideally fresh. If we are
Right.
not fresh, our body tells you if you need that sleep or not. Now, a watch or a wearable device is telling us the amount of sleep that you need to have, fortunately or unfortunately. On these lines, what are the different stages of sleep? Why am I asking this? Is because I've seen it in a lot of devices. There are different stages. A sleep is actually divided by a watch when you wear it and sleep it in the night. So, what are the different stages of sleep?
Well, I mean, two things. One, you're so correct. As we've watched an entire global change in the importance of tracking sleep, that we would think that sleep just started last 5, 10 years ago. But we've been sleeping our whole lives. And what we've realized is that in sleep, there are various stages that our mind goes through that affects us mentally, physically, and emotionally. And during this stage of what we call light sleep, our N1 sleep, this is the time that we're kind of just transitioning into that grogginess, going into that state of, leaving the room, sort of a mindset, right? That you're kind of no longer feeling the presence of what's going on around you. Then you get into a deep sleep, which the body tends to slow down now. So these muscles are becoming more relaxed. You haven't used them in quite a few hours and time. And, these are things that the body needs to start physically getting into a deep restorative physical sleep. So all the muscles, the tissues that we are, working out in the gym to build this mass, and obviously everything that's been done. This is the physical restoration part of sleep. And then there's that time of sleep, which we call REM sleep, rapid eye movement. This is a time
Okay.
when our dreaming and our memory and emotional processes take place. And this is critical part of the sleep, which makes up about 15 to 25% of the time that we sleep, for our bodies to regulate our hormones, for our ability to be able to consolidate what we've learned and our creative mindsets to be clear. And once again, our decision making and just the functionality of us being able to have a clear head, right, without the brain fog. This time of REM is very important for all of us, and
Yes.
affects a lot more than what people really realize.
Okay, okay, got it. So thanks for that. As we continue to evolve as a mankind, so there were a lot of new inventions that have happened in the medical history. And previously, as we were talking about 10, 15 years ago, either you have slept or you did not sleep. There are only two terms, right? So I had a good sleep, I did not have a good sleep. These are the only two medical conditions we used to have. Now there are a lot of medical conditions that are probably there earlier, but no one realized, or probably they have been emerged in the recent times. But what's this sleep insomnia, if I said it right? So what is this about? What happens in this case?
Well, I think a lot of what you said earlier, all this tracking of our sleep now is causing us a sense of anxiety to sleep. I call it sleep anxiety. You're thinking, oh, I'm not doing well because I'm measuring my sleep tracker. And also, they're consumable devices, for the market. Most often not medical grade, and also not under the supervision of a doctor to properly analyze, nor are you actually looking at all the parameters of sleep. But it's a good benchmark for you to kind of get an idea based on movement and various, things that you could assume that you are in sleep. But insomnia is something that affects all of us at some point, where we have a difficulty falling asleep, or a difficulty staying asleep. And I would say that a majority of people that deal with this tend to lend to the beautiful cup of coffee to start the day mindset, and energy
Right.
drinks throughout the day, and some type of sleeping aid to try to get back to sleep. And it becomes a vicious cycle, unfortunately, for many years.
Talking about those energy drinks that we consume as well as the caffeine that we consume on a regular basis. So I see a lot of youngsters as well as those who wants to keep themselves awake to complete a certain task consume a lot of the sugary drinks as well as a lot of this adrenaline rush based drinks throughout the day. Do you think they are also playing a vital role in affecting their sleep cycle?
Oh, without a doubt, the consumption of caffeine and those type of drinks that increase the adrenaline in the body, unfortunately, takes the time to wash out of the body before the body hormone levels could regulate again your melatonin and cortisol levels, as well as the exposure to light. These things would cause you to have difficulties being able to fall asleep and stay asleep. It's funny and ironic that at the same time, I remember growing up never needing an energy drink, never drinking coffee,
Yeah,
getting the
yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
opportunity to sleep at night. But yet we're in a generation that there's more young children or younger adults, would you say, are in coffee shops and consuming these things for various reasons.
Yeah,
And it's to prove that
yeah.
the whole
Even
world is
I never
sleep
had
deprived
to.
from child to
Exactly.
adults.
Even that's true. Even I never had to have any of these caffeines and all, luckily, because I don't really need these coffees and all for me to stay awake. I've not got used to it. But I agree with you on that, Gregory. So thanks for the
And it's
clarification.
expensive. And you think about it, but over the months and the years that you keep doing this every day, you add up the amount of money you spend. It's ridiculous when you look at it.
Exactly. Yeah, along with insomnia, there is another word that I have heard, another term that I have heard, which is sleep apnea. What is the sleep apnea? What is the difference between insomnia and sleep apnea?
Well, sleep apnea is a condition while asleep, and obviously you're unaware of what happens to you while you're sleeping, that your breathing may be pausing and stopping repeatedly. If that is happening and your oxygen levels start to drop, it affects the quality of your sleep and increase your risk of having heart attacks and strokes, diabetes and depression and things such of that nature. Most people who have insomnia may have sleep apnea as well, where they're having these pauses in breathing. Most often, it is recognized by loud snoring, as the muscles become relaxed in the back of the airway space and they become vibrational as turbulent air is trying to come through. Unfortunately, it's a nightmare for someone sleeping next to someone with a snoring problem, but at the same time, it could cause you to wake up in the middle of the night, waking yourself up because of the amount of adrenaline released during what we call sympathetic activation or fight or flight response. So
Right.
they kind of go hand in hand. About 30 to 40% of people who have insomnia also have sleep apnea untreated and could have a combination of more than one type of sleep disorder.
I actually experienced this several years ago, and I think I often experience this, till pretty recently. There were these times when I actually sleep and I fall asleep with my back on the bed, like I'm facing the sky, right? So I can see things around. But I cannot move a limb of my body. I can hear people. I can see things around. I'm trying hard to actually move, seek help. I felt like someone is sitting on my chest,
Mm-hmm.
right? My chest was so heavy, and I was so scared at the time. And I forced myself to wake up all of a sudden. And as soon as I wake up, I breathe very heavy. Over the course of time, several years, I realized this term called sleep paralysis. And I experience this even now until lately. So, for the sake of our audience, could you tell us what is this sleep paralysis? And is it harmful, or is this something which is routine that we need not be worried about?
Well, just like you, I've experienced that, and it's scary, right? It's frightening when you're
Yes.
aware that everything around you, but yet you can't seem to move. And it's the kind of the same feeling of anybody who's had surgery and came out of
Yes.
surgery and still under medication and can't seem to have any movement of their limbs, which is very concerning. But
Yes.
this is just frightening. It's not harmful. Most often, it's due to irregular sleep schedules, stress, extreme sleep deprivation, and if it becomes very frequent, it's definitely something that you want to take a look into deeper, having a sleep specialist do what we call a polysomnography test or some other measurements to determine what type of disorder you may be suffering from.
Okay, okay. But this is something that we need not be worried about, right?
Yes, not unless it's happening all the time. I mean, from time to time, it could happen. Their consciousness could be there, but yet the body limbs and muscles has not gotten engaged yet, and
Okay,
sometimes that
okay,
signal
great.
is
That that
not able to be,
that gives a lot of relief.
performed.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
you're
gives a
okay.
lot of relief to a lot of people. Right.
Right.
Right. There is this complaint that we have received when we have telecasted an introduction about this podcast. We have received a lot of questions from a lot of public. One of them is we wake up in the early morning times, which is at around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and we cannot sleep after that. Why does it happen?
Wow, it's crazy. I wish I had a solution for it because it happens to me as well.
Oh,
When
okay.
I
So
mean,
let
I
me
wake
ask
up.
this.
I mean, as an entrepreneur, it seems like your brain never really turns off, right?
Right.
And there's other reasons why you're waking up. They say that if you wake up at that time, that's the sweetest time of the morning to have devotion, and everything is quiet around you. And some of actually the most successful people in business wake up with an early regiment at 3 a.m. Actually, one good friend of mine does that to this day. But at the same time, when our body's blood sugar drops, or when there's increase, as we talked about, sympathetic activation because of our airway is collapsing, we're not getting oxygen, the brain saying, hey, what's going on? The starts causing the heart to increase the speed so that it can push fresh oxygenated blood back around. This fight or flight response or sympathetic activation fragments sleep and causes you to wake up. Most people
Okay.
would wake up to go to the restroom frequently, which is another
Yes.
sign of most often sleep apnea, a term called nocturia. So these things will all
Okay.
affect you and cause you to wake up, and without having a consistent routine of sleep or proper nutrition before bed, these things obviously could cause you to wake up and be uncomfortably not able to go back to bed for hours.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's what everyone wishes too. Now, Greg, what are some of the lifestyle factors that influences or affects the sleep, Greg?
I would say these phones. I mean, the constant stimulation of the light, the blue light, affecting our melatonin levels, our intake of caffeine that we talked about, which has come more of a culture and a lifestyle now for so many. Our inability to be able to just detach from stress of security around you, financial concerns, health concerns, depression of a lost one. I mean, there's so much that's plaguing people's minds on a day-to-day basis, and all of this is a direct attack on our sleep. I would say that it's very difficult to sleep unless you're at peace or that you have come to a point where you are able to wind yourself down to put that day behind you and get prepared for the next.
Correct. Isn't it fascinating, Greg? So, in order for you to have a good night's sleep, you need to have a peace of mind. And in order for you to have a peace of mind, you need to have a good night's sleep. How fascinating these both are interlinked with each other, isn't it?
Hand in hand. And like I said, how you sleep is how you live. How you sleep is
Correct.
how you look, how you feel, how
Yes.
you love, how you think, how you work. Basically, everything in life is predicated on how well you sleep.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to actually give you a link for the book that has been written by Greg in the description. You can find that when you click on it, it will take you to that PDF. You can download it and you can practice some of the techniques that are provided by Greg. So he is available on our Medicas platform, both on the mobile application as well as on the website for you to have a personal consultation. Because no shame, it is important for us to have our engines inside our body rest, and there is no one better than Greg who can assist us with his 26 years of experience. Now, Greg, moving on, as we are talking about some quick tips or rather solutions, I know we can't cover a lot in this short duration. However, if you have to list down certain techniques to have a good night's sleep, what would they be, Greg?
Well, a consistent bedtime routine is essential. I mean, if you can get your biological clock or what we call our circadian rhythm to be consistent from night to night, your mind will get to a place where it senses it's time to go to sleep rather. And at the same time, you'll find out you may even wake up a few minutes before your alarm clock because your brain is already
Exactly.
triggered to knowing it's
Exactly.
time to get up. So that's
Exactly.
that's very important. You know, doing breathing exercises before bed, trying to get in a relaxed state of mind and mode is very helpful in some cases. You know, progressively some muscle, you know, relaxation, maybe even journaling, you know, writing some things down to kind of get it off your mind for the next day, making sure the room is cool and dark and not noisy by any means. And if you have a partner that you sleep with, you know, help that they should understand to respect your sleep schedule. So, you know, you can't have one person in the bed watching TV with the light on while the other person's trying to sleep. You got to get on the same sleep
Correct.
routine and respect each other's sleep and avoid caffeine. You know, after 12 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you got to give yourself some time to allow that to wash out of your system so that you can get your mind prepared for sleep.
That's true. How about water? Because I heard that, if you continue to drink until you go to bed, there are chances that you may be awake or maybe, get up from the sleep because you have to go to the washroom frequently. How late you have to drink water, and what is the time difference you should have between the sleep and final sip of water, Greg?
Well, that's a great question because, you know, not just water, but any type of liquid consumption prior to bed it's probably best to state that, you know, at least an hour before bed or 2 hours before bed, you should stop drinking. Um, but most persons could sleep throughout the night, even having something to drink if they haven't drank like a gallon of milk or water. You just had a few
Okay.
ounces of to wet your throat, you know, so to say, and you decide to go to bed. Obviously, there's in the Caribbean, there's so many rituals of tea and Ovaltine and, you know,
Right.
Milo and all the things that, you know, we had as a child as we were part of our sleep regimen. But I would
Right.
say that, you know, when we are trying to sleep and understanding that if we are not focusing on what we're putting in our body, where we are around us, you know, where your mind is at, you got to put yourself in a mindset for sleep. The same way you
Yes.
put yourself in a mindset for worship, or you put yourself in a mindset to be a student. You know, this is something you have to do. It's just as if you went into a spa. You know, and everybody loves the beautiful sounds of the music and the aroma and the quietness that's there that
I
brings on this
yes.
mental state of relaxation. We have
Correct.
to prepare for sleep like we've never done before because sleep is under a major attack.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there are certain people, believe me or not, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, as soon as they hit the bed, irrespective the location, irrespective whether there is a lot of noise around them, as soon as they close their eyes, they can fall asleep. I feel so jealous of them, honestly
I
speaking.
know,
They don't
but you
have
shouldn't.
concern of anything.
You shouldn't, because you shouldn't sleep everywhere, for one. And two, that is a clear sign that you're sleep deprived, meaning that you could sleep
Yeah,
anywhere. It's the many years of hours lost over the months and years that you did not get good, adequate sleep, that you would just doze off just about anywhere that you're not active. And sometimes, even while driving or even when needing to be alert, you still tend to lose consciousness because of sleep deprivation.
Greg, you know what? I mean, I'm sure you agree with me too. Electricity invention was one of the greatest inventions what a mankind has done. So we are able to change our lifestyles and are able to achieve a lot of things due to electricity, right? So back then, when there was no electricity, sun was the only source of energy or illumination that we have around the world, right? So I heard and I've read in some books that people used to complete their daily work as well as they also finish their dinner before the sun sets.
Yes.
And by the time they go to bed, the food what they ate was almost digested, and that does not disturb the sleep. Now I think, the fast food culture as well as the food being available until the midnight and people going out and sleeping at any time and eat anything, do you think because of the availability of the food in the evenings, of course there are certain people, based on their work timings as well as for various other reasons, they have to eat in the late night and all, but then what is the last meal that you should have before you hit the bed? Do you think it's a good habit to eat after the sunset?
Well, I mean, we all wish we could go back to the days of old where things were so much more simpler, right? You know, we didn't live in a 24-hour society, and we knew at a certain time things would close down and we would prepare for the next day. But as you know, we live in a 24-hour round the clock stimulation of electronics and visual stimulation, physical stimulation is at our fingertips. And because of the lack of discipline, the lack of being able to just resist the temptation of getting back on that phone or scrolling through the many thoughts that you'll have in over a few minutes, looking at various things and posts. We are our own worst enemy. We are not
Yes.
truly preparing to understand that our life will be determined, as well as the health that we have, based on the ability for us to focus on these 7 to maybe 9 hours of us getting this time to repair and rejuvenate and restore the mind and body. We take it for granted. And it wasn't until I was affected by my grandmother passing and watching how sleep apnea unfolds in front of you, and seeing someone who had challenges, just seeing like they had energy at all, even after a full night's rest, or their blood pressure was constantly, going up and on different medication, eventually getting glaucoma and then dementia. I realized later on that so many families are impacted by this. It's been really why I've been so passionate to try to help people in the Caribbean, primarily where my family is from in Trinidad. And, eventually realized that Jamaicans and Barbadians and Guyanese and everybody else across the Caribbean sleep and all have these same challenges because it's a global problem. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity that this becomes a topic that we are now discussing and bringing some light to the understanding of some of the challenges that relationships suffer from physically, sexually, mentally, and how our health is directly impacted by our blood pressure and sugar levels and weight and cancers and heart attacks and erectile issues all stem to poor sleep. And we should start focusing on it more, like what we're doing today.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Greg. Is that what has triggered you to choose this career of sleep therapist?
Man, I fell into this. I would never say I sat in a classroom as a child and they asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, that I wanted
Oh,
to
okay.
be talking about sleep. I'm the last person, believe me. If you read my book, you'll see why. But I realized that over time, as being a respiratory therapist now, almost 27 years, and watching people with this sleep breathing disorder, it kind of fascinated me that so many people didn't know that it even was real, and that snoring was not a funny thing or just a common thing, but actually a sign of something more seriously could be taking place. And then at the same time, realizing that maybe this was my purpose. Like, this is what I was destined to do, thinking about everything I've been involved in, being a U.S. Air Force military veteran, going to school to be in respiratory, being an athlete, being in medical sales and working in hospitals, and finally kind of coming into this niche space of sleep. I don't think I've ever come out of this coma, so to say. I've come out of this this spell
Right.
of this bug, what sleep is caused. Even led me to the point to writing this book. So I'm excited that, like I said, sleep is getting the attention it's starting to get through technology and people having conversations like we're having today. And those problems can now be resolved, because that's the best part of being a clinician, is seeing the change in lives that you can make just by helping them with a condition they didn't realize could so easily be helped.
More than 27 years, I'm sure you have treated a lot of patients. And I'm sure there are a lot of success stories as well in your lifestyle. So, keeping the patient's success stories aside, I want to ask you about your sleep pattern. And
Mhm.
what are there any days where, even though you are a specialist in sleep, you still struggle to sleep?
Well, I'll say I'm a specialist in sleep apnea, which is a problem that occurs during sleep. Sleep specialist, that term is more or less left for persons who are board certified sleep physicians who have studied sleep
Oh,
medicine in more than 80 different types of sleeping disorders. But what my appreciation
oh,
to this came from is a personal one, obviously because of my grandmother having a condition, my father having a stroke. But I myself, being an entrepreneur, constantly on the move, I'm in a different country pretty much every week. My sleep also is being impacted, and I don't have a hack on it. So I have to prioritize, even up to last night, knowing that we were going to speak today. It was okay, turn on Netflix and maybe watch something, or close everything down and go to sleep, and you just have to have that discipline to let go of that day And I've had to learn along the way, and it's helping me. And I know the times when I'm not getting sleep. I know when I'm not at my best and how it's impacting my clarity of thought and just my energy and stamina. So, it's a personal thing for me to try to get good sleep. And I try to bring that same awareness and, I guess, energy to people to believe that, what, if you can get your sleep in order, a lot of things in your life could actually come back into order that you would like.
That's true. That's true.
Mm.
And Greg, I'm sure a lot of people would actually sync with me on this question that I'm going to ask you. See, I have a habit. I sleep very early because I wake up very early in the morning for my physical activities and all that I usually do in the early morning time. So I wake up as early as 3 a.m. in the morning, and that's what I am actually.
Okay.
But what happens? Yeah. But what happens is, though I have set an alarm at 3 a.m., I always tend to wake up at least 15 minutes to half an hour early than my alarm time. You did mention about the biological clock being set. I
Mhm.
assume in a positive way that my biological clock has been set, and a lot of people who's watching also may feel the same. But there are certain people who are worried about it. I've set an alarm for 3 a.m., but I'm waking up at 2:30 a.m. or 2:45 a.m. Is that a problem, or is that a good sign, Greg?
Well, it's only a problem if you went to bed at 1 a.m. and you didn't get enough rest. I mean, waking up at
Yes.
a certain time is not a problem with it. It's most important that you're getting the ability to go through those stages of sleep we talked about. And typically 7 hours is pretty much what you need as an adult to have that process be fulfilled away. And because you look like you're in great shape, your sleep schedule has a lot to do with that. Your consistency and discipline to certain things that you've been, implemented in your life is what's giving you the success and what you have in your every day of the 24 hours that we're given, right? When we're blessed to see another
Yes.
day. So yeah, waking up at 3 a.m., if that's your ritual, by all means, great. But if you wake up a half an hour earlier, hey, if you can sneak another 15 minutes like I do and then snooze the, the clock or do what you have to do, by all means, take it. Because your day's getting ready to start, and if you are
Yes.
prepared mentally and you get a jump start as early as you are, you would find that you get so much more done in a day
Yes.
than when most people do that sleeping till almost 9 o'clock before they get up.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Correct.
Mhm.
We are now talking about some, I would say, external factors that may help the sleep, which could be a therapy or it could be some medication or supplements. Right. So, are they recommended? Who should take them? Under what guidance should they take any sort of sleep medications or pills, or it could be some sort of therapies or whatever? Right?
That's a great question because if you go into any retail store, pharmacy, or grocery, you'll see a whole section now pretty set up for sleep, sleeping aids, and different types of ways of helping people to try to get to sleep. But unfortunately, when you don't consider that your sleep is something that not only you don't know anything about it, but your physician doesn't know anything about it unless there's actually a sleep study done. So you're kind of like diagnosing yourself to say I have insomnia because I can't sleep, so I'll take this as a solution to that. And unfortunately, that's not a long-term solution. It may be good in the short term, but when you are using stimulants, it's going to affect you in one way or the other because everything you put in has to come out right some way or shape, or form. So when we look at the amount of people worldwide that are forced to, I would say, into the habits to stimulating their mind and getting more an edge on their day with a little bit of caffeine here or there, pay those consequences long term. When you're dealing with short sleep, that's one factor, but then we're still needing to put the emphasis on the quality of even the short sleep. If your breathing has paused repeatedly during that short 4 or 5 hours of sleep, that quality of sleep was poor. It's fragmented. You didn't get the benefits of your light, deep, and REM sleep that your body requires to rejuvenate, replenish, improve the immunity of the body, put ourselves in position to start the day. So I think overall, when we take a look at your sleep schedule, my sleep schedule, it may differ depending on work schedule, what your
Yes.
responsibilities are, and then what your body would work with. And you
Yes.
found a way. Like my grandmother seemed like she slept 5 hours and she was constantly ready to go. Some people
Oh,
sleep on little sleep and get by. Some people need a full 8, 9, 10 hours and wouldn't sacrifice a minute for anyone because
correct.
it's precious to them. So it's
Especially
kind of
today.
unique to each person.
Exactly. I kind of concur with your thoughts on that. So, Greg, I think this question is on behalf of a lot of young parents because when you have a very young child or an infant in the house, most of the time, I wouldn't say most of the times, it's always the sleep pattern of the child is different than our sleep pattern, right? And that's when this, one of the postpartum depressions that mothers would have is unable to sleep because the child is, we need to give attention to the child, obviously.
Hmm.
So around the world, both the parents, the young parents, have the sleep deprivation when they have young children. In fact, I'm talking about less than a year. So, what's your advice to them?
Stop having kids. No, I'm just playing. When we have a precious newborn in our lives, it becomes the priority, and we would jump to any need that is required, and that unfortunately goes on throughout the wee hours of the night, and that now directly impacts us as young adults and parents because we still have our responsibilities. If you don't have the pleasure of being able to stay home, and you having to sync yourself to the child's schedule, but yet still prepare for other things, these are a lot of the responsibilities that are on young parents, and even older parents. I mean, imagine when you're older having a young child, how much more it impacts them. But their sleep
Correct.
is even more vitally important to them.
Correct.
But children are a blessing. If you can have a team, that normally helps. If you have someone that's helpful, and maybe a grandmother that can come into town, or a loved one of some sort, or even the partners themselves can take turns saying, hey, you know what, if you got to get up to change the baby tonight or do this, handle it for me, I need my sleep tonight. You got to understand that this is something that's you both love and enjoy, but also you need that time to repair and prepare for the next day. So I think children are great watching TV, and going on these movie marathons, and going through a whole Netflix
Yeah.
series a day. It's never good, because when you don't have that consistency of falling asleep when you should and waking up, it's going to start having a ripple effect over time. And so
Correct.
many
Correct.
medications are being used, and so many people are trying to fix things through the internet and not seeing the professional help that they need, and doing a diagnostic test to get their appropriate treatment plan to improve for the better success and outcomes.
Correct. Correct. I mean, I can also imagine what you're saying there, Greg. So, Greg, you mentioned about the duration as well as the consistency related to the sleep. What's more important? Is that sleep duration or sleep consistency?
I think they both go hand in hand, because if your consistency is not in place, it's going to be hard to fall asleep and stay asleep. And you may need some aid to do so because your body doesn't know what to do. It's kind of out of whack, you know. And then at the same time, duration is equally important because you got to go through those stages, right, to regulate your desire to eat and metabolism, to control your weight. Your blood pressure needs to take a dip so that it can regulate. The hormones of testosterone and libido, these things that obviously we need as men and as women for our sex lives, and our mood swings and behavior. It needs proper rest for the brain to detox all those uh, buildup of proteins that are building up throughout the day. You got to detox this. It's a mental detox that takes place during sleep. And
Correct.
unfortunate, if we don't get it, you're going to suffer. That's the only way
Yes.
to really say that that you can't hack it and get around it. You could get it for so long, but eventually the rubber is going to hit the road.
Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, so there is no hack around, there is no workaround for sleep. Sleep is a sleep. So your work may have a workaround, or your other activities that you do in a day may have a hack around or workaround. But if I sleep, you don't rest. So if you need to rest, you need to sleep. So focus on your sleep, ladies and
So
gentlemen.
true.
Uh, so Greg, see, there is around the world there is a lot of cultural things that are there, very prevalent, of course. A lot of them are respectable. So one of them I would like to highlight is a lot of elderly people, if we have them in our houses, now that we have a lot of nuclear families, the concept of joint families and living together has almost disappeared. Obviously, because of this work culture as well as a lot of other factors too. Now, when you had a lot of elderly people in the house, no matter how late you come from your office or from your work, they don't let you sleep without eating, right? So what do I prioritize at that time? Do I prioritize eat? Because if I eat, I cannot sleep immediately. But do you want me to directly hit the bed and do not with an empty stomach or probably half hungry or hungry? Can I sleep with hunger? Because that's again another concept. I cannot sleep if I'm hungry. This is another a topic that keeps running around in the social media as well as others. So what are your thoughts on this, Greg?
First off, you don't eat to sleep.
Okay.
So, eating is for a sense of energy, right? For us to be able to do something while awake. So if you consume something in the late evening or whatnot, make sure that it's one, not a lot of high sugar involved with one, and two, it's a small amount because your digestive system needs to be able to rejuvenate itself too and repair and do all the things that it needs to be done. And if you've got food in your stomach still, it never gets that chance to go through that process. So, eating a heavy meal, I would say maybe no more than 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, giving yourself enough time to kind of get it off you. I know the grandparents want you to eat and want you to be healthy and all those good things, but
Yes.
maybe it'd be a good time to re-educate some of the older generation about how sleep has impacted grandma. And I know we've been doing this for years, but there are things that we've learned that affect the quality of sleep, and eating at night is really not a good thing.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that, Greg. But there is this another question, which is in the afternoons, a lot of people tend to sleep right after a meal, right after lunch. Is that a good habit? Because some of them say, no, you should not be sleeping after a meal in the afternoon. And some of them say, that's okay. Because I'm talking about, I've heard one natural therapist and an alternative medicine, which is Ayurveda specialist, saying that, you can have a good, decent amount of sleep, or at least half an hour to 1 hour after your lunch. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a sleep advocate, so anytime you can sleep and it's safe, I'm gonna
Okay,
say
simple and
sleep.
straight answer.
I'm the wrong
Very
person to
simple and
ask
straight.
that question to. I mean, I'm sure there are some things that may happen if you eat and go directly to sleep because of the digestive tract and so forth. But if you need to sleep, I'd always say take it. I would rather have a charged phone than a non-charged phone, right? I rather have a charged mind and body than not to. But when you are considering taking these naps, it's probably important that you don't take them maybe past 3 or 4 o'clock, so that you don't throw off that circadian rhythm again that we talked about, so that body knows when to sleep, so you're not having difficulty to try to fall asleep. And maybe try not to nap more than about 20 to 30 minutes at most. So
Okay.
you're just taking it as a
Okay.
power nap. You're not trying to take two,
Yes.
3 hours at a time here. And then a lot of people sleep that way, unfortunately, due to their busy lifestyle and work schedules. And they're taking what we say in the Caribbean, we taking a five here, we taking a five there, but the mindset is that you can't take a little sleep here and a little sleep here and a little sleep here and
Right.
add all that sleep together to
And
say, hey, I got 6 hours.
I
Doesn't
have
work that
never
way.
taken 6 hours. Got it. Understand.
Some people have 8 hours in 5 days when you add it up sometimes.
That's correct. I agree with you on that. Greg, if, before we move on to the rapid fire questions, which we have collected from a lot of public, one last question to you. If you have to name top 5 or 10 food that helps you have a good night's sleep, what would they be?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. Well, I was just sharing with my mother yesterday that I'm eating cherries before bed. It's got magnesium in it. It has some ways that I guess it reduces inflammation and these things that help me to sleep. Magnesium is a great supplement to take. Unfortunately, people are running to the stores and buying a lot of melatonin. Your body produces naturally melatonin, so it really doesn't require that you have to keep taking this, because you're throwing off your body's production of knowing when to produce it, and then you're becoming somewhat dependent and maybe even feeling groggy once you're waking up. And sometimes the melatonin, it comes out of your system, and then you're alert at 3 o'clock in the morning, thinking like, "Why am I up?" Right? Uh, I hear walnuts are good as well. Certain types of foods are calming. Aromas. I hear jasmine is a good aroma. There's so many different things that we can consider that are good for us while we sleep and what to eat. But I think is that if you can stop eating at a particular time, regardless of the temptation to eat one more slice or try one more thing to eat, and sleep. You'll find that your gut, will would definitely be happy that you did. You'll keep that
Absolutely.
waistline down. You'll sleep
Yes,
better,
yes,
not have as many nightmares and horrors because of all that stuff in your system. It's just something to think about.
yes. I mean, it's almost impossible for us to control our cravings, especially in this entertainment on demand world. Because if you
Right.
open, or I mean, certain people follow some food journals and some food handles. I'm talking about in social media. I don't want to name them though, but when you follow them, the photography and the videography that they do around the preparation of the food and the presentation of the food,
I know,
it's
right?
very difficult for you to hold
It's
your
tempting.
temptation from and you
Yes, they've been doing
eventually
that to us for years.
probably won't. Exactly. You probably won't eat that what's being presented, but you'll go into your kitchen and grab anything that you find just
I
to
know what you got.
satisfy your cravings.
So true.
All right.
So true.
Thanks. Yeah. So, Greg, now moving on to the quick rapid fire round. I mean, I'll shoot some questions to you, which are some of them are my personal, as well as some of them are collected by my team from
Okay.
public. Why do you feel tired even after an 8 hours of sleep?
Because you could have an underlying sleep disorder, right? You could have pauses in breathing that's affecting sleep quality, which is sleep apnea. You could have frequent fragmentations in the sleep because you're waking up to go to the restroom, so you're not getting the good quality sleep. You can, at the same time, may need more sleep. And it's sad to think that you're getting 8, and you say, "Well, I might need 9 or 10." I mean, everyone is uniquely different, but I think the only way to truly understand your sleep is to have a overnight sleep study. I mean, we can't guess about something we don't know. I can't tell what your blood type is, nor could you tell mine. But the thing about sleep is that it evolves over time. The way you sleep in your younger years, the way you sleep in your teens and adult life, it's different and it varies. And a lot of it has to do with what's going on mentally. So, we all going to have to come and face the music that we're going to have to rest this mind and body to get the best out of it. And if you want to try to beat it and do it your own way, you'll find out that even with the success you'll find, you won't get to enjoy it the same way.
The next question: can exercise improve your sleep quality?
Sure. I mean, but it's at the right time too. A lot of people like to work out just before bed and the body's temperature is roused up. Your body's going, and that's very difficult to come from that point to relaxation. So it's probably best to work out in the earlier mornings, or even in the afternoon, but before bed, in the evening time, it's really not. That's the time you see the gym packed, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock in the evening after everyone gets off of work, right? So, and
Yes,
then and
yes,
then most people that are there, they want to get the most out of their workout, so they're pouring in all these nutrients and things that get, and then they want to go home and sleep. you know,
yes.
but most often, like I said, it's probably best to work out and have that as part of your routine of life. But when you do it, is what's most important.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I'm sure a lot of them like this question that I'm going to ask. So there is an argument from the so-called alcoholic clubs that if I have a couple of pegs before I go to sleep, I can sleep very happily. What do you have to say on that?
If you can have a couple of what?
A couple of drinks before you
Oh,
go to
drinks.
sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they say that I can have a good night's sleep. So what are your thoughts on
Man, that's a tough one. I hear that gin before bed. I've heard that in some cases, that gin is something good before bed, because of the antioxidants or whatnot. But let me be honest with you. Alcohol consumption affects sleep quality. Okay, whether
that?
you feel connected to the sleep or you feel like you've passed out, or or somewhat feeling comatose, your best sleep could never be achieved with alcohol in your system. So it's
Oh,
not something that we would recommend by any means. In fact, drinking alcohol a few hours before bed is not even something that's recommended. And so you figure out, but when do we drink? Like in the morning? But
okay.
most people drink alcohol at night, right? As they're out entertaining and eating and doing different things. So unfortunately, alcohol will always be something that will disrupt sleep, but at the same time may cause you to feel that you've rested more because you didn't move. You're just knocked out. You know what I mean?
That's true. This question is very interesting again, right? Because I've read it in a lot of places, and different people have a different thought process on this. The position you sleep. So some of them say you need to sleep to your left for the blood flow to be proper because your heart is towards the left side of your chest.
Mhm.
And some of them say sleep to the back. Some of them say, you need to sleep on your belly. What's the sleep position to have a good night's sleep?
As you said, the left seems to be the best logical position to sleep in due to drainage and due to how it takes a lot of pressure off various parts of organs in the body and our digestive tract. Um, I think it's a lot about preference because if like in some cases if you got pain like I had in my left shoulder and that was my most enjoyable side to sleep, I had to switch to the left now to the right and on my back, and sometimes you sleep in different positions because of pain. But sleeping on your back typically is one of the biggest situations where airway collapse takes place because of gravity and the tongue and the soft
Oh,
tissue falling downward in the airway as the muscles become relaxed is what often leads to the snoring sounds, deeper, longer
oh,
desaturations of oxygen, more interruption and fragmentation in the sleep, and might get you the kind of
oh,
elbow to roll over if you're getting too loud next to your
oh.
partner. So
Huh,
yes.
correct, correct.
So the left is supposed to be the best. Some people like to sleep on their stomach, some sleep on their right, but overall, the back would probably be the least best position to sleep in due to those complications that potentially are there due to gravity.
Right, right. Thank you, Greg, for clarifying that as well. So there is another question which is related to the weight loss. Does weight loss alleviate sleep apnea symptoms?
That's a misconception because if you would say that, you would only say that people that are overweight have sleep apnea, right? Does weight play a role? Without a doubt, weight plays a role in every aspect of our health, right? If you're overweight and if you're losing weight and you can lose a lot of this mass around the chin and jaw and neck and chest line, this would aid in the ability for you to breathe, especially when you're no longer in a vertical position and now laying down in a horizontal position. But overall, when you take a look at sleep, and we have to take into consideration that positions is one thing, consumption is another thing, or your environment around you is another thing. But all in all, your sleep is your responsibility to figure it out. Like if you have to take a phone and put it at the side of your bed and record yourself to give you your first understanding of what you could be doing or saying in your sleep, that's your first part of your responsibility, because if you don't, you're still in the dark, so to say, and never knowing how sleep could be impacting your life in various ways.
Greg, there is this question from one of the group of people actually. They belong to a certain community. So when I say community, they're actually doing a certain activity for a cause. So the question from them is, can they wake up without an alarm? How do they train their body?
Well, just like how we did early in our conversation, by having consistency. If you train yourself at every morning to wake up at a certain time and to go to bed at a certain time, your brain will pick it up. Your biological clock will get in sync. Your circadian rhythm will start waking you up as you should and allowing you to sleep when you should be. So that's the main key, is the consistency. And that's a great thing if you can do that, because that means you're in sync. Nothing's worse than wishing you had an extra hour and looking at your clock and it's time to get up, right?
Right.
So if you can beat that clock and you're ready to go and your mind is clear, by all means, take charge of the day. Everyone has the same amount of hours in the day, whether you're rich or poor, old or young. So the best way to take advantage of it is getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Last question in this section, Greg. What are dreams?
Dreams is a vivid imagination, right? And the good thing is that what happens in your dreams could stay in your dreams. You don't have to tell anybody, kind of like a trip to Vegas. But at the same time, dreams is such an important part of our lives. As we look, if you're a believer and you saw how many people saw dreams and visions that predicted certain things in life that came to pass. Dreaming is a time where the brain sees things that don't exist. You create the mindset of these things, and a lot of creativity takes place during these dreams. A lot of trauma takes place during dreams too, depending on what you're watching or what's in your mind or what you allow yourself some people don't have good outcomes in their dreams, and some people, love the dreams that they have because it continues to give them that hope and inspiration each day, and to know that they're, walking in their destiny and their purpose. So I'm glad that I'm in my dream. If you're living it today, I'm speaking to people every day about sleep. It's not a job to me. I've embraced this journey that I've been on to try to overcome the stigma of what people think sleep should be, and why a CPAP is important for you to be able to breathe during sleep and not something that you should be ashamed of. And snoring is not a common thing to no longer, take some type of level of urgency to understand. Like, you just don't do it and just joke about it anymore. Like, we're bringing more attention and making sleep a thing, so to say, but at the same time educating and bringing more awareness to how we can live healthier lives, because we'll live better, we'll think better, we'll love better once we sleep better.
Correct. So, Greg, as when you speak about sleep, there is this term that actually gets triggered in everyone's mind, which is deja vu. I'm not sure if you have heard of it. So, how is this, situation called deja vu happens in the sleep? When it happened to me too, a lot of times, but what's the science behind it?
What happens in the daytime too? I think sometimes I feel like I'm in a situation I've been in before. Our brains starts
Yeah,
thinking. But I guess I will have to leave that question to the creator. I don't think we'll get the knowledge of every single thing in our lives and know why these things happen and what triggers them. We would only learn, obviously, from behaviors and research and scientific evidence. But deja vu, I believe, is just something that you may have already thought in your mind before, or felt that you've experienced it, because those dreams that we have seem real and they're vivid in our mind. And gratefully, our muscle tone is reduced so that we're not hurting ourselves or people around us acting out the dreams.
correct,
Um,
correct.
but at the same time, deja vu, the term itself it's funny. At the same time, we're still learning. I wish we could
Oh,
all remember or go back to something that we felt that we had a better chance to make a better decision, and then we did the
right,
first
right.
time.
Exactly. I mean, most of us, I would say a lot of us would have experienced this condition in their life at least once, Greg. And when we talk about these dreams, we were talking about some good dreams and some bad dreams. I personally faced an experience wherein I've been having a very good dream. I wake up to drink some water or go to the washroom. I want to go back to bed and continue the dream, but it never happened to me.
I wish.
How can I
Can we
go
just
back to
press
my dream when
pause?
it's already?
Or
How
just
can I
press
go back
pause
to
and
my
come
dream
back.
when exactly? How do I resume my
I
dream which I
know.
was enjoying? How do I
Yeah,
do
I
that?
have those. I have those nights as well. You having a good dream and you just want to get back to that. Like, I want to get back to it, like it was real. It's like you're
Exactly.
entertaining yourself during sleep, so to say.
Exactly. Exactly. But I never was able to go back to my dream and resume my enjoyment. Anyways,
No,
Rick, finally, I've read and I've understood from my team as well that during this process of you working with sleep, you also have been working with some instruments or devices that helps people with dreams like CPAP devices and few other devices where it not only monitors the sleep but also the stages and other medical conditions that are like blood pressure when they are asleep and their diabetes levels before the sleep, after the sleep, subject to correction. How can you explain our audience with respect to what are these devices? What are you working on? How is it actually changing the lives of those people who are sleep deprived or apnea?
well, I've been privileged to, have access to a lot of technology and innovation in the area of the sleep industry, being, I would say, in the area of the United States and meeting so many different CEOs and companies around the world. We use very user-friendly technology to capture sleep data in the home. One of the devices we've used for many years is our Night Owl device, which actually connects with your cell phone through an app, which is just a little sensor that goes on your finger that allows us to track heart rhythm and oxygen level, and it's actually disposable. We have a ring device that you put on your finger that you just wear that can monitor heart rate and oxygen while you're sleeping, and even vibrate and stimulate you when these events are happening, which will help you to realize when you're having apneas during sleep. Because insomnia is more of something that most people can resonate with, because we'll say, oh, I have a trouble fall asleep or a trouble to stay asleep, and can associate some pain to that. the struggles and aggression that goes along with trying to sleep. But sleep apnea doesn't have a pain associated, so you don't really treat it in the same way or see the significance of why you need to address it, unfortunately, until it's a little too late. I've spoken to thousands and thousands of families and couples, bedside partners at the same time, talking about sleep and seeing just the impact that it's made in their lives is what gives me the gratification to continue to pursue that next person I can find that's not getting a good night's sleep, or that next family that's tearing at the shreds of their relationship because of, poor sleeping habits that lead to poor sexual performance and mood swings, and and a lot of things that people don't take into account. And then those persons who are at work and being joked upon, or maybe dozing off behind the wheel, and getting a second chance, because it doesn't take but one time you're losing consciousness behind the wheel or making a poor decision that could take your life. And gratefully enough that we've had the ability to, address this with technology that we're using for testing that you can do in the convenience of your home. And what I've been exposed to for the last 26, 27 years is CPAP therapy. So knowing how to help persons with those objectives, getting over the hump, helping them to retest while they're on therapies, even using mouth guards, which are called oral appliances, or positional belts to get you off your back, like what we talked about throughout the night, so that you can keep your airway open. We have various types of options, and I've networked with a number of physicians across the Caribbean region. So with neurologists and pulmonologists and ear, nose, and throat physicians, cardiologists, women health, the list kind of goes on and on. What I've been able to develop is regards to trusted doctors who have taken the time to invest in learning more about their patients' health by investigating their sleep patterns. Trusting our doctors in the United States who are boarded in sleep medicine with over 50 years of experience in the space. And then once again, getting the buy-in from companies and health insurance providers that cover for these treatments and for these diagnostic tests. So, I'm excited once again every day that we get to reach another soul, another person that could have learned from this time that we've taken today, Varun, to address how sleep could impact their lives and give them some hope, to know that there's life on the other side of this, and I've seen it in my family personally. My mother, my father, my aunts are all on CPAPs. Basically all my friends that care about themselves come to me and silently and say, hey, and I think I got the problem. And men tend to have a stigma that they think they're weak because, they're talking about these health concerns. But it's a responsibility for men to understand that you are the protectors and the providers of your family. And if you're going to be able to do this, you need to prioritize understanding your sleep and doing whatever it takes to ensure that you get a good night's rest.
Yes, thanks, Greg. Greg, now that you mentioned about these devices, right? So, for the sake of our audience, can you show those devices once again and tell us what is that device about, and does it come with any warranty, and how do they use it?
So these are just testing devices. So you just use them as necessary. If you were going to use a night owl as a disposable test, you'll have up to 7 nights of sleep data that we can capture. A little more data than you would find from your Apple Watch and Fitbit, something that can identify what we call an apnea hypopnea index, which is indicating the severity of how many times breathing has stopped or there's been drops in your oxygen. Then there's also the sleep ring that we have, that this device would just monitor your heart rate and oxygen while you're sleeping. And I told you can wear this as many nights as you want. I think this is a tool that every family should have, because it takes away a lot of the anxiety of not knowing if you're having atrial
Oh,
fib, cardiac dysrhythmias, or an irregular heart rhythm, or not knowing if your oxygen levels are dropping, and falling in a situation where you put yourself at some serious harm and risk.
right, right. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, just to bring you to speed, we are going to enlist these devices on our website as well, where you can review them and you can purchase them as well. However, when you have a conversation with Greg through our platform, he is going to suggest you if you need a certain device where you can directly check them out from our website and get them delivered to your home. They come with a warranty number of months, and the service is also available, and they have a connection to the mobile application, and the doctors will directly get that information on a near real time basis in terms of what's happening when you're asleep and what is actually affecting your sleep. Greg, lastly, see, I mean, as you have mentioned, and as I have heard from a lot of other specialists as well, sleep plays a very important role in setting a lot of medical conditions down to their threshold levels or in control. Be it is related to anxiety, stress, which is about mental health. We talk about orthopedic related issues when, especially for sports people, I mean, the physical fitness trainers insist them to go to sleep.
Mhm.
And when we talk about pregnant women, or we talk about school going kids or college going kids, if they have to remember what they've studied, a good night's sleep is important for them to perform well the very next day. And
Correct.
various demographics of public, every or if any other medical condition is related to sleep. I'm not sure on this, but I want to ask you: is sleep kind of apnea or insomnia treatment is covered under insurance? If not, do you recommend the authorities to cover this under insurance?
Well, it is covered by health insurance worldwide, internationally. I know in the U.S. for sure, in Canada, and in the Caribbean, where we have been providing this service for more than about 13 years. All of the health insurance providers, the Guardian, Sagicor, Beacon, Tatil, Pan American Life, Unimed, M&M, Cardia Health, Canopy, just to name a few of them, they provide testing and therapy options for their patients. Some of the national health insurance organizations and working with some of the chronic disease management programs is something that we're now working towards, helping to better manage diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and a lot of the issues that most people don't realize is connected to poor sleep or not getting proper oxygen during sleep. So we're excited that, like I said, that we get to help clients that have insurance reduce a lot of costs in this regards to getting to the therapy that they need and lowering that barrier of entry. And still, once again, there's still a lot more to be done. I think sleep needs to be a part of every assessment of a patient because their sleep state is just as important as their wakeful state. And there are different values that take place completely different during sleep than while awake that have a definite effect on how well you are able to maintain blood pressure, sugar levels, testosterone levels, clarity of mind, repairing of the body and mind, as you talked about, the immunity, and we need to give it the respect it deserves.
And with this video, I assume that a lot of audience would also know that they can seek help for them to have a good night's sleep as well. Thank you so much, Greg, for giving all these insights to us. And I'm sure there are a lot of other discussions that we can have around sleep. But we shall have this in another episode of our sleep discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure this introduction related to sleep apnea, sleep insomnia, treatments, medications, therapies, as well as other techniques that help you go back to your good night's sleep like a small baby is helpful to you. If you need any further assistance or if you need a personal guidance, Gregory is available on our website and also on our mobile application. You can go through the description below. It actually has our website address as well as our mobile application, Medicas. You can search in Play Store or App Store. You find our mobile application, download it, install it, register, and you can find Gregory there. He is there to help you with his team of doctors who are psychologists, psychiatrists, and other specialists who will take care of you really well. Technology oriented treatment is going to be taken place, and he's got tons of experience and lots of success stories. You can be rest assured you're in good hands. Greg, one more time, I think I have to really take your thank the time that you have taken out of the busy schedule in giving us the insights about the importance of sleep and also an assurance, most importantly, that yes, I am there to help you and I will be there to help you for you to go back to sleep, just like how our grandparents used to do for our young kids. Thank you so much, Pranav. Until the next episode, we really wish you a very good day.
Thank you. Appreciate you.